Welcome back to the Black Hills and Eastern Railroad, everybody. Today we're continuing work on the Visitor from the East SD40-2 project. This unit emerged as a Conrail unit on our last episode in this series, and the next steps here today are to get this thing dull coated and then put some weathering on it. You can see also that I've got a few freight cars here that we're going to get started with. You'll see those in another episode. I sprayed some dull coat out of this Tester's rattle can on a couple of rail cars before I got started on the engine. So there you have it. We're ready for weathering powders. So it's now several nights later, and I'm here touching up the blue Conrail blue paint on this Visitor from the East SD40-2 project. So being a BN guy with painting step edges on these step wells here on all four corners, it feels weird to only paint the bottom step edge, but that's what my photographs indicate is what's happening here on these Conrail units, at least in the area in which I'm modeling. So we'll pour a little cheap acrylic white and we'll hit these step edges with the microbrush here. And what I like to do on these is kind of a dry brush method. I've got probably 2,000 times as much paint as I really need here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag just a little bit of that out onto this post-it note, which I will throw away after we get done painting here. And I'm going to brace my side of my hand against the bench here and just very carefully lay that white paint on. This is acrylic here, and what I'm counting on being able to do is come back, if I do make an error here, come back with a hobby knife and scrape just a little bit off of the model. If I was doing a BN unit, what I'd be doing is coming in from this way, so I have room to work, and painting 1, 2, 3 more step edges all the way up onto the platform, or all the way up onto the running boards. But we're not modeling BN here. This is a Conrail unit, so that's it for contrasting paint, at least for the safety edges. We'll probably bring you back for the fuel tank and maybe something else here. So I'm here doing the fuel tank apparatus, painting that fuel filler cap red, the sight glass red, or at least the gasket around the sight glass. Again, I'm bracing both of my hands as I paint here. I'm using a mini brush applicator, and I'm getting basically 3 elements around. The front fuel, or the front, I guess the only fuel filler on this model. Some railroads ordered with more than one fuel filler, one in the front, one in the back. This Kato model only indicates one, and I guess I didn't check to see whether there was more than that on the prototype or not. So we're going to try something new here. I've got Artist's Soft Pastels Gallery. I picked these up at our Hobby Lobby a long time ago, and I'm going to shave some of this off here with a hobby knife into a yogurt cup so I don't make a complete mess. And that's all I'm going to do for right now, because I don't know how much of this stuff I'm going to need or how little of it. Get these boxes out of the way. I bought 2 boxes. I don't even remember what varieties these came in. There's a couple of gray tones here and earth tones. So what you get with these, various shades of gray and white, and of course your other colors, earth tones, so you're going to get your rust and your burnt sienna, raw sienna. I'm not sure if that's what they call it, but primarily the tones you'd use in like landscapes and things like that. So we got our model up here, and we got our pastels that we just shaved down, and I've got a chisel brush here that I'm working in that pastel material, And I'm not going to sweat it if this stuff doesn't go exactly where it's supposed to. We're just going to wipe this back off the model. Paper towel or whatever. And if a bit of it gets where it's not supposed to be. So I'm working it into that corrugated radiator, and what we're trying to simulate here is the dark spaces inside the radiator in between those shutters. And then, of course, up into the dynamic brake grid there. And that inertial, this screen here right behind the cab. And again, I'm not being especially careful, but I'm not being especially negligent either. We're going to come back and clean those up. In fact, show you that here now. So I just grabbed a little piece of paper towel here, and I'm going to run that on the outside of where I don't want that that grit to be. And if you're wiping on anything, you pretty much always want to do a top to bottom pattern because of the way rainwater is going to run down things. And then pretty much the same thing with the other side. And what we're going for here is a fairly subtle effect anyway. I'm modeling this engine when it was fairly new, or fairly newly painted. Like some of you guys are modeling in the 2000s and stuff, when these were basically at this point switchers instead of road engines. And if you're putting black anywhere on the roof line, you gotta put it in that exhaust stack. That's always going to be awful dirty around that area. Sooty and all that kind of stuff. So a few days gone by, I completed the chalk weathering here on this engine and sealed it another time with that dull coat, the rattle can dull coat, and this is kind of how it came out. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to paint these end rails. I have another, that one that goes on the front. I'm just using this white, this cheap stuff again from Walmart, Hobby Lobby, wherever it came from. And we're just going to dab a little bit of this stuff on the end rails just to cover our contrast. So I'm here doing the fuel tank apparatus, painting that fuel filler cap red, the sight glass red, or at least the gasket around the sight glass. Again, I'm bracing both of my hands as I paint here. I'm using a mini brush applicator. I wanted to stop a minute and give a shout out to a fellow YouTuber, JazzLife1, who alerted me to the idea that Conrail did not start applying that anti-glare panel to the nose of their locomotives until 1991 or so. Since we're modeling prior to that in Conrail's history, I don't need to apply that. I was going to apply, I have a microscale set here, basically nose patches for different types of locomotives, different sizes of patches, things like that. I was going to use that here on this project. Normally on my BN units, this is actually a set 87-440 in HO scale, I believe 160-440 in N scale. I was going to apply one of these on normally on my BN units. I just mask and paint black, being I'm painting black anyway for the top. That works out fine, but I was going to try one of these here on this project. I don't have to do that. So all I got to do now with the top of the nose here is apply the sand filler hatch, and we're off and running with that part of the project. So anyway, this Jazz Life 1, he's far more senior in Conrail lore than I am. That's why we rely on people, friends out on the internet. Thank you, sir, for that bit of information, and that will help the project move along definitely, so I don't have to spend time applying decals here or masking and painting. Thank you, sir, for that input. Hope to see you here back on the next episode of Black Hills and Eastern Railroad. So it's been about 24 hours since I made a clip here, so we're continuing with the weathering and the final assembly on the Visitor from the East, Conrail 6497, and I am applying the detail part, the sand filler hatch right now. As I mentioned in another video, I do not have to apply that anti-glare panel to the top of the nose. I left that off. I left this detail part off because of that. I'm just using a little bit of acrylic paint here to apply some anti-skid to these top stairs, battery box tops, whatever you want to refer to them as. So here we are back again a couple of days later at the makeshift paint station in the shop downstairs, and I have probably what I lovingly refer to as my enchilada sauce. The boys on the Second Section podcast have taco sauce. That's their panel line wash from Tamiya. This is Polyscale, Poly-S acrylic. This is Roof Brown. I've been putting on this stuff on everything for a long time. This doesn't do the same thing that panel line wash does. This is more of a general coating. You saw me do an engine with this a couple of times ago. I'm going to put this just as a sort of a light coat around the undercarriage of this Visitor from the East SD40-2, and that'll probably be the extent of our weathering here after the powders went on. And we're just going to whirl this around with the airbrush. I've got the airbrush dialed in about 30, 35, 40 pounds, and this is thinned down. I had to put a bunch of 91% isopropyl alcohol in here to get it the consistency where it was going to run through the airbrush. It was pretty thick and nasty when I opened the bottle up. And that's kind of expected for Poly-S. This stuff is pretty thick, and you have to dial back the needle quite a ways and dial up the pressure. That usually gets it done, but I wanted to give some extra assurance here. We'll test a couple of lines here before we actually spray the engine, but that's how this is going to move forward. So I've got the air compressor all charged up, and I'm just going to spray very lightly here. And I see it going on that box. And again, I've got this thin, so it's going to be a little harder to overspray or get too much on. Get that truck squared up with the rest of the frame here. And maybe tip it off just a little bit. I'm pleased with the way this is going on, actually. Thinning that stuff does do a good job. I'm paying some extra attention to the roof line here with this Poly-S. Because typically when you see a lighter colored unit or with lighter colored paint on it, you will run into seeing that weathering, even on a newly painted unit on the roof line for sure. So I just recognized that I committed another slip up here. I had forgotten to apply these handrails to that body before I started weathering here. So I'm going to go around and hit these handrails with that same Poly-S Roof Brown that we hit the body with, just to sort of blend things in a little bit and make it a bit more credible. So it kind of appears like we're in the home stretch here. I'm going to go ahead and apply these handrails. I'm not going to attach them to the cab because we're going to do final assembly here, and that will require the cab be removed at least momentarily. There's sort of a satisfying feel to these as they sink into the pre-drilled holes on the Kato running board here. They fit tight enough to not need glue. So there you have it, the Visitor from the East SD40-2 project weathered. We're going to move on to final assembly in another episode, doing routing those fiber optic cables and making sure everything's in place. On the inside of the shell here, we're going to place the obviously the cab glazing on the windshields, the side windows, the back windows of the cab. And then we're going to maybe shoot one more little coat of weathering here. I don't know. I have a pet peeve though. Why I haven't put the windows in here yet is that I do not like models weathered with the windows in them. I do not like the appearance of messy, dirty, yucky windows, and normally the railroads don't allow that to happen, and I don't really like for it when it happens on my railroad. So I'm leaving that to one of the final steps here, is placing the window glass so it appears nice and clean and ready for the cab, or ready for the cab to be occupied, and for the crew to jump on and take the train to the next destination. So I hope you liked the content here. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe for more. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think. And as always, we'll see you in the next one if I'm lucky. Thanks. And I'm just going to spray real quick over this thing.